What is the one metal that's going to destroy America? Copper. What are you talking about? Let me explain. A number of years ago, I saw a documentary about when Russia had a financial collapse back in the early 2000s, I think it was, or something. And what occurred is people started to cannibalize the country to try to get copper, to sell copper for cash so that they could eat. And that's been going on for a long time here in America. I've heard of a number of different situations and things over the years. But it's starting to really increase. I'm going to be putting a few things up here, just showing different mainstream media sources. I saw one that said that in Phoenix, Arizona, I think the copper theft rate is up 100% in 1 year. It's really something. And I remember back when before I even knew my wife, back when I was living in Pennsylvania, we went to a hardware store and they actually had to lock up the copper pipe at the time. I think copper had gone to $4.50 or something a pound. And there was actually some guy came in and he was where they would cut the copper pipe at the hardware store. There was, he was there sweeping up the shavings, the copper pipe shavings. And they, came in, what are you doing? And, and whatever. And I had bought a dual sport and they stopped the guy from doing it. Basically, they had to lock up the copper pipes and then keep all the copper shavings. But then I went and I bought a dual sport motorcycle, and the guy that I bought it from was working at a kind of a metal fabrication place or something. And again, they had to lock up their copper scrap. And he was talking about the size of this one pallet with copper on it at the time. And my father and I, my father drove, and then so he could drive back and I could ride the motorcycle back. And so we're sitting there, and my father said, so the copper's worth, a good amount? And the guy said, oh, it's worth a lot. And my father said, well, what's it worth about? And the guy said, well, he said, this particular type of pallet, I forget what the size was, but he said it's worth about $45,000 in scrap copper value. $45,000? I'm thinking, huh? So, seeing all that, I started to realize that there's a lot of copper that gets thrown out. And right now, there's this huge need for copper. And they want to build all this electric infrastructure for the AI thing. And it's kind of ironic, really, when you think about it, because you have artificial intelligence being built to take away the jobs of the common working man. And it forces a lot of common working men to start being tempted to steal copper, which is needed for the AI to take their jobs away. You gotta love how things work, Reality oftentimes is reality is not a being or something, but I'm saying, the real world is kind of like this weird, sarcastic sense of humor type of thing when you really understand what's going on. Copper's needed to take away the jobs, and the guys take away the copper because they lost their jobs. Maybe if you just leave things alone and let things be done God's way, working by the sweat of your brow and fearing God and doing right and not being greedy and stealing and whatever else, things would be okay, but people don't want to follow God's advice. But I just find it interesting. And it's a little bit of advice to you. Don't go steal copper. I'm not advocating that you steal copper. Please don't think that. But it's everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff that you can take and you can say, okay, there's money there. And don't be stupid about just getting rid of copper. Right here, this little device right here, this thing is a wire stripper. And you can put wire through there, and then you put over here, this little part right here, you chuck this into your drill, like a cordless drill, and then you can run it and it'll pull the wires through, and this little blade in here, probably can't see that, but then there's little grippy wheels, and it pulls it through and puts a little groove in the top of the wire, and you just pull the copper wire right out through it. And we do that all the time. I taught Oliver how to do it, and he's over here. I think the one sermon I did, you can actually hear him in the background stripping copper wire. You can hear the drill going, like that. But here's some old, old Christmas lights right there, sitting on this chair. I remember, again, hearing about my brother-in-law, the one time not the one time, but my brother-in-law, his mother worked at a Walmart down in Pennsylvania. And they said the one year that whatever Christmas lights didn't sell, they just took them, threw them in the dumpster, take them off to the landfill someplace. I mean, it's insane, the waste that's in this country. We need to mine copper. We have this desperate need for copper. It's a national security issue right now. We need to have more electricity so we can build more AI, which we need the components for the AI to get them from China, because we can't make them here in America. So we need to have AI, build up AI so we can defeat China, but we rely on China to give us the components for the AI. Seems to bring to mind the scripture that God shall turn them over to a reprobate mind. That's pretty much what's happened here. But show you another one for copper people that drool over copper guys that understand the scrapping of copper. One that you might not think of, right here. This is how thick that stuff is. That's an old cable from one of my school buses, battery cable. So that's why it's all blackened on the end, old copper battery cable there. But down here, I'll show this real quick. When we bought the place, you can see down there all these old motors, all the copper and everything in there. My grandfather actually used to put those together, worked at a machine shop. So there's a lot of copper out there. And when people start to realize this, they start to go after that copper. And I think guys are going to be put into desperate situations, and what Satan's children, the Goonie birds, I like to call them, what they want to do is they want to bring in their digital currency. And free people need to fight that. And so I'm advocating legally getting copper. It's another form of money. You could even use it for barter and things like that. And again, it's not worth your time. And I know all the arguments. I know all about that. I've known construction guys that they say it's just not worth the time and effort to strip it and whatever else. I was talking about this whole subject with the electrician that did the wiring work here, but you can look at the course of history and how they're using aluminum now for a lot of the wiring jobs. To show you some of that, we had some scrap pieces left over from the job that was done. Aluminum wire, because they can't afford copper anymore. Why? Copper's going up in value. And people are so wasteful, they just throw away all this copper. It's crazy. But you can get copper, and of course we can't even make the penny too. That's another thing because of copper. But you can get copper from lots of different sources, and you can have it there. Take it to scrap yards. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. And I think going forward, as the devil goes after the economy of this nation here in America, the value of copper is going to continue going up. I think it's $5 and some odd cents right now. And people are starting to realize that. I mean, you see these videos, again, news reporting and things. People are cutting down power lines, just chopping down power lines, and they're getting $50,000 to $100,000 for the copper that they're stealing. Going into new construction and cutting out copper pipes, cutting out copper wires. I mean, and that's what happened in Russia when Russia fell economically. And, the Bible talks about no man despises a thief that steals, that needs food, that needs bread. You have children and you're watching your children starve. It's going to drive people to very desperate situations. And again, I've been looking at this thing and saw a report yesterday where they're saying that artificial intelligence, these data centers, that one in Texas required the power of 1 million homes. for artificial intelligence to work. I think we can do it without artificial intelligence. I don't think we need to be having power outages and whatever else. Let's get rid of the artificial intelligence garbage. Oh, would America become a third world country then? Good. I've been to third world countries. They are a lot freer than they are here. You know, I've been to Honduras, extremely poor, probably the poorest country in Central America. And you see people going down the road, they're in the back of the pickup truck, cruising down the road, people on the bumper, hanging onto the back of the truck, 50 miles an hour down the highway. Thought, man, you couldn't get away with that in America. Used to do that kind of stuff as a teenager back in the 1980s. But those times have long since passed. You'd probably be, I don't even know what would happen to you now. It'd, be crazy, the kind of things that they would do to you. But you mark my words, you watch. As this economic stuff gets pushed on people, people are losing their jobs and whatever, you're going to see copper theft go crazy, especially because there's a huge demand for it. And all these AI data centers, they're having to cancel a lot of them. So I was talking about earlier there and got off my point, but they're canceling a lot of these data centers because they just don't have America cannot produce the energy required. And I have to say this, I go past these solar farms that they're putting up all over the place, and they're not guarded, there's just wires everywhere, and I think, man, the wrong guy's going to see that stuff and just say, hey, wood-handled axe and a knight, of making some things happen. I mean, they're already doing it to the solar, or like the EV charging station things. Guys just going in there, cut the cord, and there you go. Groceries. And that's what I'm telling you. You're going to see that continuing. I'll just say that. Copper is what's going to bring this country down. It's a weird thing to think about, but it's needed. And in order to meet the need, the price is going to go up, which is going to make it more tempting for thieves. Bad situation. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. What do you think about this? Are you into legal scrapping of copper? I'm not advocating illegally. Don't go out with your, pipe cutters or something, or wire cutters, and take down the power lines and by your house or something. I remember, hearing a story years ago that some guy went up and they found him up, he climbed up some big power tower. He's up there with bolt cutters or something trying to get the high voltage power lines. Crispy critter. Fried him. All right, don't do that. Okay, don't do that. All right, don't go out and steal copper. But I'm not advocating it, but I'm saying it's going to be happening. If you've seen it in your area or any kind of stuff about copper, let me know. Do you scrap copper, whatever else? I did for quite a few years. My infamous thumb scar right there, cut through the tenon. Taking wires out of a fan and the fan shroud, like the metal going around. I went right down over it without gloves on, and it cut down to the bone, cut my tendon. So I've got a scar because of scrapping copper. But copper that I scrapped for many years, I had a friend that worked at a hardware store, and they'd get bad electronics coming in, and they'd throw them in the trash, and he'd go over and just take some snips and cut the wires off and throw them in a box, and he'd give them to me. And I had another buddy that worked construction. They'd be throwing wires away. He'd give them to me. And so I had different friends and things that would gather copper for me. And the sale of the copper way back then helped to buy our first place in Maine. And so it is useful to do. So, well, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd like to read about it, and we'll see you in the next video.